As World War II tore apart families across the world, most civilians were passive pawns in the conflict and were left to the mercy of their fates. When the husband of a small Soviet family of 2, however, was lost in battle, the widowed wife chose not to mourn quietly. Mariya Vasileyevna would instead direct her loss towards furious revenge. Following a special petition to the USSR, she was allowed to use her life savings to purchase a T-34 tank. It would be named the Fighting Girlfriend. Life before war. Mariya Vasileyevna was a serf in the Crimean Peninsula of the Russian Empire. One of 9 children, she was, in practical terms, a slave to a feudal lord, bound to the land she was born in and subject to his whims. When the Communist Revolution began sweeping over the empire, she became a strong supporter of it. Once the Bolsheviks took power in 1917, when she was only 12, she had access to basic education at Jankoy and later on employment. She worked in a cannery in Simferopol, and then as a telephone operator for the local area in the newly formed Soviet Union. She met an officer of the Red Army, Ground Infantry Cavalry Division, Ilya Fedorovich Oktyabrskaya. They married in 1925. Mariya Vasileyevna became Mariya Vasileyevna Oktyabrskaya, and she took up a passionate interest in the military, stating in a letter to her sister, quote, "Marry a serviceman and you serve in the army. An officer's wife is not only a proud woman, but also a responsible title." She made sure her actions aligned with her beliefs, and trained as an army nurse. She also underwent driving and general armament lessons. She was an active member of the Military Wives' Council. Sadly, the couple could not conceive, but that allowed them to fully commit to the Soviet cause. USSR and Germany go to war. In 1939, the USSR and Germany signed the Treaty of Non-Aggression between Germany and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, commonly known as the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. The pact not only established a commitment to peace between the two nations, but it also marked each country's permitted sphere of influence, something that was kept a secret until the Nuremberg trials. When Germany invaded Poland in 1939, the agreement quickly fell apart. In response, the Soviets invaded Poland just as the battles of Khalkhin Gol came to an end, and the pact was supplemented with the German-Soviet Frontier Treaty. This peace would not last either. Under the guise of a preemptive strike, and with the ultimate goal of repopulating the Soviet Union with German nationals, Hitler ordered the commencement of Operation Barbarossa. With more than 600,000 soldiers stationed at Soviet frontiers since February of 1941, the USSR was slow to act. For a time, Stalin was confident that Germany would respect the 2-year-old peace pact. On June 22, 1941, the Germans attacked, unprovoked. The foreign minister of the Soviet Union addressed his country on national broadcast, quote, "Without a declaration of war, German forces fell on our country, attacked our frontiers in many places. The Red Army and the whole nation will wage a victorious, patriotic war for our beloved country, for honor, for liberty." The war begins. When the call to war came in 1941, Ilya Oktyabrskaya was sent to the front, while Mariya was evacuated from Chisinau to Tomsk. He wrote one last optimistic letter about the war, sure that the USSR would triumph, and so would he. It took around 2 years for the news of Ilya's death around Kiev to reach Mariya, who anxiously awaited the return of her husband in Siberia. Devastated but ready to act, the widow decided to sell all their possessions and work as hard as possible to save money. Her goal was to buy a tank and donate it to the army under certain specific stipulations. Working for 2 months on embroidery, she finally amassed sufficient resources to purchase a tank. Yet she wanted to be the one to take revenge on the invading country that had taken her husband from her. She wrote a letter to the leader of the USSR himself, which, translated from Russian, said, quote, "Dear Joseph Vissarionovich, in the battles for the motherland, my husband, Regimental Commissar Ilya Fedorovich Oktyabrskaya, was killed. For his death, and for the death of Soviet people who were tortured by the fascist barbarians, I want to take revenge on the fascist dogs. So I have contributed all of our personal savings, 50,000 rubles, to the National Bank to build a tank, which I beg be named Fighting Girlfriend, and send me to the front as the driver of the tank. I can drive perfectly and shoot my own gun. Mariya Oktyabrskaya." The State Defense Committee met, and knowing the opportunities for propaganda that would come from having someone with her story as part of the war effort, promptly sent a response from Stalin that said, quote, "Thank you, Mariya, for your concern about the armed forces of the Red Army. Your wish will be fulfilled. Please accept my greetings. Supreme Commander Joseph Stalin." At 38 years old, Mariya enrolled in a training program for tank driving for 5 months, getting an unusually thorough level of preparation. It's been speculated that this was done because she would be a high-profile figure for inspiring morale. After training, in 1943, she was sent as a driver and mechanic to the 26th Guards Tank Brigade of the 2nd Guards Tank Corps. Her T-34 tank was inscribed at the turret with its name, Fighting Girlfriend. Some fellow soldiers discounted her, thinking her involvement was mostly a public relations move, but she proved them wrong on the battlefield. The Fighting Girlfriend. Around 800,000 or more Soviet women enlisted and served in the Red Army to fight the German Third Reich during World War II. A majority of those were part of aircraft squadrons, but a number served driving tanks or as foot soldiers. Among the tank drivers was Mariya Vasileyevna, who was prepared, angry, but still not in the good graces of the soldiers around her. The Fighting Girlfriend and her driver first entered the battlefield in Smolensk on October 21st of 1934. At a gathering of those leading the front in a small clearing in the woods, she asked to speak and gave a passionate speech, which translated from the Russian said something along the lines of, quote, "My dear friends, I am proud that I will fight against the hated enemy as part of this famous Guard Tank Brigade. I will know how to be a soldier at this brigade once we reach the German border. We will enter the lair of the beast and forever defeat it for its hunting war against our country. I swear to you that the tank crew of Fighting Girlfriend will not fall behind you. I will smash the fascists while my heart beats." The city of Smolensk had been taken by the Germans in September, and small resistance attempts had been unsuccessful in liberating it. The widow brought out all the energy, anger, and loss she had experienced to fight intensely. Reportedly, Fighting Girlfriend was the first tank to cross enemy lines, making way for more soldiers to breach the German front. She took out an anti-tank gun, several machine gun nests, and defeated multiple enemies, outmaneuvering the German soldiers at every turn. Yet tanks tend to be noticeable targets, especially when they have a skilled driver commanding them. The Germans shelled her T-34 tank, bringing it to a halt. Mariya would not let that stop her. Against orders to remain in her tank, she leapt out and repaired it as the battle continued all around her. She continued fighting from her tank as soon as she was done fixing it. Her peers began seeing her as an equal, if not superior, able soldier. That night the voice of the commander came from the speakers all over camp, saying in Russian, quote, "Fight as the tankers are fighting. Just today, the crew of glorious machines destroyed a platoon." For her excellent fighting performance, Mariya Vasileyevna was promoted to sergeant. As for her comrades, they nicknamed her Mother, out of respect for having fought valiantly and continuing to fight after putting herself at significant risk by repairing the tank mid-battle. After this first taste of the battlefield, she sent a letter to one of her sisters reaffirming her commitment to the war effort, telling her that, quote, "I've had my baptism by fire. I beat the bastards. Sometimes I'm so angry I can't even breathe." Fighting Girlfriend joined the battle once more on November 17th, with what some of her fellow comrades saw as her finest hour. The Soviets launched an attack to capture the town of Novaya Siala in Visbek during the night. Mariya used her tank to target the German defensive until an artillery shell exploded on her tank's tracks. Once again, she refused to let the attack on the tank stop her. She and an accompanying crewman hopped off to repair the track, as fellow soldiers whose respect she had earned during her first fight shielded her from turret fire. Mariya was not about to rejoin fighting immediately, but she and her tank re-entered the battle among the main unit a couple of days later. Blood and passion. Mariya had proved an invaluable asset in the fight against the Third Reich. Some would say she had gotten her revenge on the enemy. In January of 1944, the Soviets attacked a fortified German position, and Fighting Girlfriend took a paralyzing hit. Mariya was ordered to stay inside the tank, but perhaps emboldened by her previous successes at mid-fight repair, she leapt out of her tank. She wasn't as lucky on this occasion, and was unable to dodge shrapnel. She surrendered to pain in her right eye, thigh, and left arm, falling unconscious on the field. She was taken out on a stretcher and sent to Smolensk. The surgeon supervising her reportedly wrote in his notes to the nurse, quote, "Much blood loss, overall weak state." She presented cranial injuries, in addition to those in her eye and extremities. Major L.Z. Mellis gave her the military decoration Order of the Patriotic War, First Degree. Soon after, her condition worsened, delaying her transfer to a hospital in Moscow. She fell into a coma for 2 months before passing away at the ward in 1944. For her incredible efforts, Mariya Vasileyevna is remembered as a Russian folk hero for her role in the Second World War. She was posthumously made a hero of the Soviet Union, in addition to receiving the Orden Lenina and Znak Gvardia. Through determination, anger, and courage, the fighting girlfriend showed the capabilities and prowess of women in combat.